But let's quickly bring in our guest who joins us this morning. Thank you so much for being here, by the way. We do have our very own guest who's joining us to discuss not just the story on the tanker issue, we'll also touch very softly, like I did say, on the papers. Professor Simeon Nnah joins us this morning. Thank you so much for being here, sir.
Thank you and welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Viewers.
Good morning. Let's start off first with the tanker explosion before we go straight to some of the other stories on the papers. What's your take on that? It's Enugu this past weekend. Prior to that, it was Niger State, and then we had Agbo in Delta State as well. What's your take on this?
Devil is in the details. I smell a rat. I don't think these things are ordinary, but whatever happens, the government is paying lip service to it. I read in one of the papers, the president is lamenting on the issue. Lamentation does not solve problems. I think it was Henry Ford that said, don't complain, look for solutions, because any idiot can complain. So it's not about just lamentation. What are we doing? These things are one too many. So government should be doing something. In fact, I tried to search what has been going on. In last year, there was this incident that happened in Jigawa and took 170 Nigerians. Yet we are paying lip service to some of these things.
Now, Prof, looking at a solution-driven approach, because there are multiple reasons, and every situation is different. Sometimes these tankers are not properly latched, and then you have Nigerians going to siphon content that has been spilled. You also have a case, the case in Diko in Niger State was quite perplexing, that you bring another tanker to transfer that. So where do we even start to address these issues from?
No, we start from the beginning. Right. Some of the tankers are not properly latched. We have security agents on the roads. Why don't they identify these tankers? And even from the loading bay.
VIO-FRS.
Yes. From the loading bay, they should ensure that these things are properly latched. Otherwise, they should not leave the loading bays. That's one. So we should now, what we should do is to get security agents at that loading bay to ensure that every tanker that is leaving that place is properly latched. That's one. The second issue is that, remember, our roads are death traps.
Bad roads.
Our roads are death traps. So, and they should ensure that some of these roads are, see, in the 80s that we had rail transport, were we complaining of these tanker explosions? No. So government should do the needful. This road transport, they've been on it for so long and spending so much money and nothing is happening. So can we please try to resuscitate our rail transport? Because once these things are done, now we'll begin to think of, covering some of these issues. I recall too that there was a time in Lagos, it was a policy, I think that was during Fashola administration, that big vehicles don't ply during the day.
That's it, yes.
They ply in the evenings. So the roads will be a little bit clearer for them, instead of meeting traffic on the road and what have you. We learned that one of the tankers lost brake and ran into people, and a lot of people are dead. Now, the official report in Enugu is saying 11, but I was reading, Sahara Reporters this morning, and Sahara Reporters said that an eyewitness said 70 people were dead and 11 vehicles burnt. You see, and you know that these official figures they are reeling out are not the real figures. So please, government should do the needful. Enough of these rhetorics.
Now, you talked about properly latched. You also talk about bad roads, about the people that siphon. Do you need government to tell them that this is fire, don't go and play with fire?
Well, the government should mount a campaign against that. Because, see, there's poverty in the land. People are hungry. I was talking with a friend yesterday. He said in their church, a lady just slumped. And they brought in a doctor. The doctor looked at all the vitals and said there's nothing wrong with the woman. So when they poured water on her, when she came back to life, she said, I'm not eating since 2 days. I trekked to church to see whether I can see anybody to borrow from. So they just quickly went to an eatery, bought food for her, and she consumed it with amazing rapidity, showing that actually she was hungry. So there's hunger in the land. And with the cost of fuel, people believe that if they can get maybe 25 kg or liters or 10 liters of fuel, they are going to make a lot of money to sustain them for some time. So you see, poverty is in the land, and government is not doing anything to address it. Everything palliative. Maybe in Enugu-Onitsha they are going to give them palliative, because we have seen that this administration is administration of palliative. Anything happens, you give palliative. People are dying, you give palliative. You increase fuel, you give palliative. You raise dollar, you give palliative. So we should think of things to do, not palliative.
Talking about thinking of things to do, like I said, the tanker explosion seems to be one that, you recall, the president had already commissioned, he put together a committee to look at the causes and to ensure they avert any other happening again. Not quite long ago, after I commissioned the committee, that's when we saw the second one happen in Niger State, and then not long again, we just saw the one that happened in Enugu. Do you think that in Nigerian setting, committees do work?
Can I shock you? They are going to set another committee to review the report of this committee. Committees don't work in this country. We have seen it happen. What is going to happen now? This committee will finish a report. They now constitute another committee to review the report of this committee. And at the end of the day, the thing will gather dust. You will not hear anything about it. So that's why I said, let's find something doing. Let's stop these showman bees. That's what we're doing. We come on TV to show that we are doing something. Meanwhile, we are doing practically nothing. That's a fact.
We've talked about these tanker explosions, and it seems like it's starting to look like averting it would be very tough. Our train system, we know, is not working. Yeah. You did mention that if we go back in the past, we know how these were transported. The only way that's being used now is land. Do we go back to the Fashola era, where, of course, trucks were told not to move during the day, but should focus only at night? If we should do that, how well do you think it will be obeyed and observed?
No, in those days it was obeyed. The problem, see, I've always said this, that Nigeria is a law-abiding country.
Are you sure about that?
But the problem, I'm coming. I'm going to prove it to you. The problem we have is our leaders. Now, I don't know where you were in 1984 when Idiabo and Buhari came on board.
War against indiscipline.
Yes. All they needed to do was to propagate a decree and set example with somebody. In fact, a captain was disciplined for jumping queue in a tax office. Now, when that was done, you saw people were conscious of not running foul to the law. But when you have a leader that, I don't want to go there, I wanted to say something, but it's still alleged, that it was alleged that somebody spent 16 billion to build a gate. It's still an allegation. It has not been proven. But when you hear such things, people begin to wonder that, wow, what kind of government do we have? So the problem is leadership. If we have the right leadership in place, people will follow. But the problem we have in this country is that we have rulers, not leaders. And there are mistakes to be avoided, not examples to be followed.
Now, Prof, you mentioned socioeconomic factors, poverty. You also mentioned leaders. Now let's talk about accountability. Nigeria is a country where things often happen because they haven't been punished. You also mentioned Buhari and Idiabo. One of the reasons why they were successful to an extent with the war against indiscipline is that there were consequences for actions. Correct. I have never, and I'm sure Joe can testify, heard of any conviction of one of these drivers, of the tanker drivers, an FRSC, of the company itself, an FRSC sector commander that was that lost his job or was suspended as a result of this. What is the value of a Nigerian life? Nigerians can't just die in their hundreds and there's zero consequences, no accountability. So where can we, somebody must be responsible for the bad roads, for the tanker that was not properly latched, and for not cordoning off that place, fire service, to prevent people from even going there to fetch petroleum products.
Nigeria
You have a minute, sir.
Yeah, Nigeria is a country where bad leadership is rewarded and corrupt people are, hailed. Look at what happened in Kogi. There was an incident that happened in this country, the first in history of this country, that 14 out of 15 justices of the Supreme Court wrote a petition against the Chief Justice of the Federation. At the end of the day, he was rewarded with 2-point-something billion as retirement benefits. In other clans, he would have been sacked. But he was rewarded and given second, I think it was the second highest honor in the land. So that's the trajectory. Recall that when Buhari was coming in 2015, everything suddenly started working because they said, this man has come because of what they thought he did in 1984. But I'll shock you that who was doing those things was Idiabo. That was why that administration was tagged Buhari Idiabo regime. That's the only regime you will hear the second in command so pronounced. So it was, I told people that that government was running on autopilot because, and he proved me right, because he sent his IGP to Benue. And after like 2-3 weeks, they asked him that the man, he said he didn't know. So that tells you that that administration was running on autopilot. And look at what was going on in the system. So you see, the problem of Nigeria has to be tackled from the root. Once we get the right leadership in place, some of these things will fall into line.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you so much, Professor Simeon Nnah, for joining us. This is a conversation that Nigerians would love to continue, so you can do that on our social media space. And we're also going to have Professor join us again pretty soon. Let's look at some of the very important issues that really need answers to. Yeah. Thank you for your time for joining us this morning.